Hi everyone, welcome to the kitchen, and today I want to share how I actually cooked one of the best curries in my life. I would say it was the best curry in my life. And I also wanted to share a couple of tips of how to make your curry taste better. So if you find it interesting, keep on watching. And this style of videos has been inspired by the Home Pro Cooks. I learned so much from his channel, so go check it out if you're interested in this kind of stuff. He gives a lot of tips and tricks on how to elevate your dishes so you will not regret it 100%. This recipe does include tofu, so the video is going to include one special tip for tofu specifically, and you will know how to make it delicious and get more flavor in. So if this is something that you're interested in, definitely keep on watching. And I promise the tofu there is going to be delicious. And how can I say this? It's been approved by a non-vegan, so you can trust me on this one. This curry is supposed to be a Thai red curry. I didn't have the red curry paste. I had just 1 tablespoon out of 3. So it turned into a brown Thai curry. Because why? Because I mixed it with the green curry. So go with the red curry paste if you want the perfect red Thai curry color. And in this video today, I'm taking advantage of an Instant Pot. So if you have one, it's really easy to cook in it, although there are a couple of things that you need to keep in mind, basically by how fast it actually cooks, how fast it works. Otherwise, if you don't have an Instant Pot, don't even bother, just join in and cook the best curry in your life. And we are starting with tip number 1, and this is actually regarding our tofu. I think everyone in their lives thought that tofu is bland and yikes and too soft. So in order to make it less soft, we want to squeeze the liquid out of it. How to make this process more efficient, how to squeeze the most liquid out of it. If you freeze your tofu in advance, at least for a couple of hours, and then defrost it, it's going to be so much easier to squeeze the water out. It's going to give out the water, and actually these days I do have a couple of tofu blocks stored in my freezer so I can defrost it any day I want. It's way easier this way to get rid of the excess water on the surface and inside the tofu, so it can absorb more flavor of the spices that you're adding. And if you want to roast it, it actually does add a really nice crisp, so it has a bite to it. And tip number 2, the thing that I've been talking about for a while now, if you're cooking in an Instant Pot, it's way easier to cook in batches. It applies to any kind of cooking, especially if you're just starting and you are not chopping as fast. I don't chop very fast. I do take my time to peel and chop and all those things. So if you first pre-chop your stuff in batches in the order in which they would go onto the pan or into an Instant Pot in this case, because things do burn really fast on a saute mode in an Instant Pot. So keep that in mind and use this to your advantage to cook food fast, but just don't burn it. Prepare things in batches. And here goes our batch number 1. It consists of onions, garlic. We do cut the onions. I prefer to slice them thinly. You can also use shallots, the longer onions, which are kind of fancier. I find it hard to find them here in Dubai, but you can use just regular onion, 1 to 2 onions. I used 1 onion and they're going to go together with garlic. You can use from 3 to 5 cloves of garlic, depending on really how much you like it. And now we do have the curry paste. I used 1 tablespoon of the red curry paste and 2 tablespoons of the green curry paste. And here comes tip number 3. Different curry pastes are different in their content. Even though it can be green curry paste, it can contain different stuff. It can be with sugar added, without sugar added, with added oil, without added oil. So if you're not into cooking yourself, do read the label. And if you're concerned about your sugar intake, which we should be mindful of, to be honest, then just go and read your labels and understand what's inside your curry paste. And here is a tiny tip number 4 regarding spices. If you don't like dry spices, then you have a reason. Here I'm using liquid ginger instead of dry ginger, and instead of just grating the ginger, because I just don't use the whole root. So liquid spices can make your life way easier. And we are moving on to our batch number 2. So in the second round, we will be adding 1 sweet potato. I just diced it. We will be adding an aubergine or an eggplant, however you like to call it. I diced it. Tip number 5 will be to let your eggplant sweat a little bit in the colander for like 30 minutes to around 2 hours by just dicing it or slicing it and adding some larger crystal salt so your eggplant starts sweating. I'm not actually using this technique here because I was kind of lazy, but if you want to enhance the flavor of your aubergine, and especially if you're using oil in your cooking, this allows the eggplant to absorb less oil and absorb more flavor. The next 2 things in our batch number 2 are the coconut milk. If you are concerned about saturated fats, if you have high cholesterol levels, you might want to substitute it with something like cashew milk, maybe pistachio milk will also get flavor. I'm thinking cashew milk might be more interesting. Also, soy milk can be good because coconut milk does actually contain quite a lot of saturated fat content, and it can raise your LDL cholesterol. Actually, that's what it does. That's what's been shown in the studies. And the last component that we have here is a little bit of soy sauce, which is high in sodium content, but there have been many studies that show the benefits of using fermented soy products in the meals, so you might consider that as a salt replacement. Well, another benefit though of adding soy sauce versus just salt is the umami flavor that you get by adding fermented soy products, and it just adds another dimension instead of just plain saltiness. And on to batch number 3. Tip 6 comes from Gordon Ramsay himself. We are cutting the bell pepper. It's really easy to cut the bell pepper kind of vertically, starting from the top to the bottom to the stem, to the head part, going along the body of the bell pepper, and it allows you to de-seed the bell pepper and slice it at the same time, so you end up with this stem and the seeds, and you don't need to wash the insides of the bell pepper. It's really convenient. Tip number 7 is also about bell peppers. Bell peppers are rich in vitamin C, and you would want to add them in the end of the cooking process if you want to take advantage of the vitamin C levels that are in bell pepper. Why? Because vitamin C disintegrates with heat. So if you don't want it to disintegrate, if you want to have the antioxidant advantage of vitamin C in your food, do add them towards the end of the process and chop them into smaller pieces so they take shorter time to cook. Here we're also using around half a cup of green beans. We cut them in small pieces like this, and we just chop the tails and the heads off and just wash them, make sure that they're clean and dry. You can also use frozen green beans. However, those tend to be kind of soaky wet already when you defrost them. Not very nice, but if you know some brand that does produce really nice green beans that are already pre-cut, you just need to defrost them, and basically you can use them. Also, watch out for the sodium content in frozen foods. It can be a little bit higher than you want to. Overall, one thing to keep in mind, the final ingredient in our batch number 3 is our tofu. We press it, you can towel dry it as well. You can pat it dry to make sure that there is less liquid left. For this tofu, I kept it in the freezer for around 3 hours and then I defrosted it, so it didn't give out all the liquid, but it did give out way more liquid than it would have otherwise if I didn't do that. The only thing is, when you put the tofu into the freezer, you need to drain the excess liquid that's already in the pack, because otherwise it will take longer to freeze and to defrost it, which makes sense, science. Speaking of tofu and soy products, by the way, there have been a lot of concerns fluctuating around given the compounds that soy contains, which is the phytoestrogens, which have a similar name to estrogens, but actually they do have a different effect on the body. This is what studies show. Phytoestrogens, isoflavones that are present in soy have protective effects on cardiovascular system. They have possible protective effects on osteoporosis and muscular fatigue, as well as they may help with prevention of endometrial cancers and mammary glands cancers, so basically breast cancer. I also came across studies that showed the positive treatment effects of adding soy isoflavones into the diets of patients suffering with acne, especially in young women. The improvements have been shown in the state of their skin. My main point is occasional consumption of soy might not be as bad as it was pictured previously, especially in the social media, in the mass media. Maybe it's not actually that bad. And on to our last batch. This is going to be a little bit of basil, around 1/4 cup, and I'm going to be using liquid basil because what? Because I have it, and otherwise I wouldn't have used the whole plant anyway. And also we are adding juice of half of a lime. This way we add a little bit of acidity in there. Do remember, limes are not the same as lemons in terms of vitamin C content. Lemons do have this advantage over limes, but the flavor is completely different, and for a more Thai flavor, limes are the way. And we start with the saute mode, as we often do when we are using the Instant Pot. You can add some oil, 1 tablespoon, or some water, and this is, you can consider it as an additional tip. You don't always have to use oil in cooking. And in this curry, we already have coconut milk, and you can use the lighter version of it to avoid adding as much fat as you could have. Do consider replacing oil with water. This is overall better for your health, but also don't forget to enjoy your meal. After this, the steps are really super simple. We take everything from batch 1, add it to boiling, like simmering water or oil, and we'll let them to saute for around 1 minute. Mix it really well so it doesn't burn on inside your pot. After which we take batch number 2, add it all in, mix it all together, let the flavors come together. After this step, we close the lid. After the lid is closed, we put it to the sealing mode and let it all cook on high pressure for around 4 minutes. After the 4 minutes are out, you quick release. Be careful to not burn yourself. The steam is really, really hot. Add everything from batch number 3, mix it all together, and then close the lid back to the sealing mode and let it cook on low pressure, not high pressure, for 2 minutes. After this, quick release again, you're almost done. Add in some basil, some lime juice, and oh my god, the flavor of this is phenomenal. It tastes really, really good. You can serve it with some rice, you can serve it with some parsley, you can add some chili flakes on top to make it more colorful, to make it look brighter, and serve it hot. I promise you, if you hated tofu, if you hated curries, try this. It hits the spot. And thank you so much for watching me today, joining me in this kitchen. And if you can, remember to eat some greens and veggies today. And of course, remember that cooking has to be fun, cooking has to be enjoyed. For me personally, there is magic in it. And of course, I will always appreciate your feedback as a comment or like. Let me know what you think. And if you're really into it, please consider subscribing. This doesn't cost much, but it means so much to me. And I catch you later. See ya.